Welcome back to our channel Rare Coins Hub. In today's video, we're going to explore something really interesting and exciting. So, if you want to find out what you'll learn by staying with us till the end, make sure to watch the whole video. Stay with us and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started. In 1965, a significant chapter in American coinage was written, but many people today have no idea just how special a 1965 dime can be. A dime, that humble 10-cent piece, was a regular part of people's pockets, their everyday currency. But what makes the 1965 dime stand out isn't just its design or its size. It's a remarkable story woven into the very fabric of U.S. history, a story of change, evolution, and, unexpectedly, rarity. Before we dive into the details of the 1965 dime, let's take a step back. The year was 1965, and America was in the middle of a transformative period. The country was deeply engaged in the Cold War, and domestic unrest was simmering as the civil rights movement gained momentum. At the same time, the American economy was in the midst of a monumental shift, especially when it came to currency. In fact, it was in this very year that the U.S. government made one of the most significant changes in the history of American coinage. The decision to remove silver from dimes, quarters, and half dollars was made in response to rising silver prices and a coin shortage that had begun to affect the country. For centuries, coins were made with precious metals, a practice that had its roots in antiquity. But now, as the world changed, so did the way the U.S. Treasury produced its money. The 1965 dime was the very first to be minted without any silver content. This change, though a matter of necessity for the government, would later become a defining characteristic of the coin. But let's hold that thought for a moment. Let's talk about the design of the 1965 dime. Anyone who's ever seen a dime is familiar with its design. On the obverse, you'll find the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. This design was created by the renowned artist John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. Sinek's design of Roosevelt for the dime first appeared in 1946, just a year after the president's death, as a tribute to the man who had led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. Sinek's design for Roosevelt's profile was thoughtful and dignified, capturing the strength and resilience of the leader. On the reverse, you'll find a simple, yet powerful image of a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch. These symbols are rich in meaning. The torch represents freedom, the olive branch peace, and the oak branch strength. Together, they create a visual representation of American ideals. But in 1965, the change in the composition of the coin wasn't the only thing that was new. The year also saw a change in the coin's physical characteristics. The mint began producing dimes using a combination of copper and nickel, rather than the traditional silver. The weight of the coin was reduced slightly, and the metallic composition was now 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. This marked the first time in modern U.S. history that dimes were made without silver. It was a necessary response to the soaring prices of silver, but it would also have unexpected consequences for collectors. By the time the U.S. Mint produced the 1965 dimes, the country was already dealing with the effects of the coin shortage. Coins were being hoarded, and there was widespread concern about the diminishing supply of silver. For a brief time, there was even speculation that the U.S. might have to stop minting dimes and quarters altogether. But the production of the 1965 dime, along with the changes to other coins, ensured that the U.S. currency system could continue to function in the face of these challenges. But the 1965 dime wasn't just about economic necessity, it also became a symbol of American ingenuity. The U.S. Mint was forced to innovate, and in doing so, it created a coin that, for a while, seemed like just another dime in circulation. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Hidden within the mintage of these coins was a rare anomaly, a mistake that would go unnoticed for decades. Most 1965 dimes are made of the new copper-nickel composition, but some were mistakenly struck with silver. These coins, which were produced in tiny quantities, are now considered some of the rarest and most valuable dimes in the world. But how could a coin like this slip through the cracks? The reason is simple: during the transition from silver to copper-nickel, some old silver dies were still in circulation. These dies, which were used to strike coins, were not properly replaced or checked in time, leading to a handful of dimes being struck with silver. For years, these rare silver dimes went unnoticed. The public didn't know the difference, and coin collectors didn't realize what had happened. The U.S. Mint wasn't even aware of the mistake until later. But in the decades that followed, coin collectors began to notice discrepancies, and eventually, the truth came to light. There were, in fact, a few 1965 dimes out there made from silver. Now, here's where the story really takes a fascinating turn. Those rare silver dimes, because they were produced in such limited quantities, have become incredibly valuable. And I'm not talking about just a small increase in price. I'm talking about mind-blowing figures, dimes worth thousands of dollars. The 1965 silver dime is a coin that, depending on its condition and provenance, can be worth upwards of $122,000. That's right, a single dime, a coin that most people wouldn't think twice about, could fetch more than a six-figure price at auction. How did we get from a simple, everyday dime to a coin worth such an astonishing sum? It all comes down to rarity, history, and a bit of luck. But before you start rushing to your coin jar, let's talk about how you can actually find a 1965 silver dime. These coins are not easy to spot, and finding one in circulation today is nearly impossible. In fact, most of these dimes are found by expert collectors who have access to specialized tools and resources. The 1965 silver dimes that are worth the most are those in excellent condition, often graded by professional coin grading services. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect. A coin's grade depends on its condition, which includes factors like wear, scratches, and discoloration. Coins that are in mint state, with minimal wear and no visible defects, are worth much more than those that have been circulated and show signs of damage. The 1965 silver dime that's in the best possible condition might be graded as MS 65 or higher, and that's where you see those incredible values start to surface. If you happen to have a collection of 1965 dimes, it's worth checking each one carefully. You might not find one with silver in it, but if you do, you've just stumbled upon a potentially life-changing treasure. Now that we've covered the history and rarity of the 1965 silver dime, let's talk about its value in today's market. As mentioned earlier, the rare silver versions of the 1965 dime can fetch anywhere from a few $1,000s to over $120,000 at auction. This huge range depends on factors like the coin's condition, the provenance, or history, of the coin, and whether it's been authenticated by a professional grading service. The 1965 silver dimes that are in the best condition and have been certified by reputable coin grading services like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, are the ones that can command those extraordinary prices. These professional services assess the coin's condition, assign a grade, and issue a certificate of authenticity. A graded coin is more likely to sell for top dollar at auction because collectors know they're getting a coin that's been thoroughly vetted for its authenticity and quality. So, how do these dimes end up on the market? How do collectors find these rare coins in the first place? The answer lies in the world of coin collecting, where enthusiasts actively seek out rare coins through auctions, private sales, and sometimes even coin roll hunting, where collectors go through rolls of coins from banks in search of hidden treasures. It's a thrilling hobby, one where you never know what you might find. In the past few years, 1965 silver dimes have become highly sought after by both collectors and investors. The combination of rarity, historical significance, and the allure of owning a piece of American history has made these coins incredibly desirable. But the market for these rare dimes is competitive, and prices can fluctuate depending on demand and the condition of the coin. The year 1976 was one of monumental significance in the United States. It marked the 200th anniversary of the country's independence, 2 centuries of a nation that had grown from a revolutionary colony to a powerful global force. People everywhere were celebrating the bicentennial, from parades to fireworks, from political speeches to patriotic displays. But amidst all the celebrations, something much smaller and seemingly inconspicuous would become an unexpected part of this historic year: a coin. The 1976 dime, a small 10-cent piece, was struck during this momentous time, and it holds within it a fascinating tale of design, change, and value. If you've ever handled a dime, you're familiar with its weight and size: just 17.9 millimeters in diameter, a tiny coin that fits perfectly between your fingers. But the 1976 dime is more than just a coin in the pocket. It's a part of American history, and for collectors, it's become a sought-after treasure. The significance of this particular dime, however, lies not just in its minting or design, but in the time period it was created and the rare mistakes that occurred along the way. It all starts in the mid-1970s, a time when the United States was experiencing a combination of challenges and celebrations that would impact every corner of society, including the U.S. Mint. America had been through a turbulent period in the years prior to 1976. The Vietnam War had come to an end in 1975, and the country was dealing with the social, political, and economic ramifications of the 1960s and early 1970s. The energy crisis, high inflation, and the scandal of Watergate had shaken the nation. Yet, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence was a moment to reflect on America's successes and its enduring place in the world. And it was this bicentennial celebration that set the stage for the creation of several commemorative coins, including the 1976 quarter and half dollar. The U.S. Mint, eager to honor the nation's 200-year milestone, began producing coins that would feature unique designs to mark the occasion. The most notable of these coins was the 1976 bicentennial quarter, which featured a design that celebrated the 13 original colonies. The reverse side of the coin showcased the Liberty Bell and the moon, symbols of both the nation's past and future. It became a symbol of the United States bicentennial, and it was wildly popular among the public and coin collectors alike. But the dime, that humble 10-cent coin, wasn't left out of this celebration, even though it wasn't given the same prominent design alterations as the quarter or half dollar. The 1976 dime, unlike the quarter, did not undergo a drastic redesign. The same basic design that had been used for the dime since 1946 was kept in place. The obverse featured a portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, and the reverse displayed the familiar image of a torch, olive branch, and oak branch. However, there was something distinctive about the 1976 dimes that set them apart from other years. They were minted as part of the bicentennial celebrations, and they were part of a larger set of coins that were produced with an eye toward this historical milestone. To understand the full significance of the 1976 dime, we have to go back to the time of Franklin D. Roosevelt. His portrait was originally designed by the artist John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, and was first struck on the dime in 1946, a year after Roosevelt's death. Sinek's design was a fitting tribute to the president, who had guided the country through the Great Depression and World War II. The coin's reverse, featuring the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbolized the ideals that Roosevelt had championed: freedom, peace, and strength. When the U.S. Mint began producing coins for the bicentennial celebration, it didn't change the design of the dime, but the coin was still struck as part of a larger movement. The 1976 dime, like many other coins, was part of the Mint's efforts to produce millions of commemorative coins in celebration of the bicentennial year. These coins were designed to reflect the spirit of the nation's 200th birthday, but at the same time, the Mint was still dealing with the challenges of producing currency during a period of high inflation and economic turmoil. As the production of the 1976 dime continued, it was not without complications. The coins were struck at multiple U.S. Mint facilities, including the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. And while the Mint had the monumental task of minting billions of coins in various denominations for the bicentennial, including the quarter and half dollar, there were some unexpected anomalies that occurred during the minting of the 1976 dimes, errors that would later come to define the coin's collector appeal. Unlike some other years, the 1976 dime wasn't struck in limited numbers or made with special metals, so it would seem like just another dime in circulation. However, like many coins in history, the combination of high demand and hasty production sometimes resulted in misstrikes. These errors were initially unnoticed by the mint, but coin collectors would eventually discover rare variations of the 1976 dime that made certain specimens extraordinarily valuable. These mistakes included coins with unusual characteristics such as doubling of the design, off-center strikes, and other features that made them stand out. But perhaps the most significant feature of the 1976 dime, and what makes it a truly captivating coin, is the fact that many of the coins produced that year were part of a historical moment that would never be repeated. The bicentennial celebration was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and the 1976 dime serves as a reminder of the country's triumphs, struggles, and transformation over 2 centuries. For collectors, the 1976 dime holds special appeal because of its historical significance. But beyond its design and its place in American history, it's the coin's rarity, combined with certain unique minting mistakes, that makes it so valuable. While most 1976 dimes are still worth their face value of 10 cents, those that were part of error sets, those with unique characteristics, and coins that were preserved in pristine condition have been fetching impressive sums at auctions. Some of the rarest and most valuable 1976 dimes have sold for staggering amounts, some reaching up to $110,000 or more. These coins, in near-perfect or error-prone condition, are highly sought after by collectors who are willing to pay top dollar for a piece of U.S. history. But why are these coins worth so much? The answer lies in the rarity and the demand. Over the years, the rarity of error coins has become more pronounced. As time goes on, the number of dimes with these unique minting mistakes diminishes, making them increasingly valuable to collectors. Additionally, the demand for high-quality, rare coins continues to grow, as more and more people seek to own a piece of American history. As such, the market for rare 1976 dimes has become quite competitive. Many collectors are willing to pay high prices for coins that have been graded by professional services like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS. These organizations evaluate coins for their authenticity, rarity, and condition, assigning a grade that can significantly influence a coin's value. A 1976 dime that has been graded as MS 65 or higher is worth much more than one that shows signs of wear or damage. Coins that are in near-perfect condition, without scratches, marks, or discoloration, are the ones that fetch the highest prices. But even if you don't have a 1976 dime that's been graded by a professional service, it's still worth taking a look at your coin collection. Many collectors find hidden gems in their own backyards, as rare and valuable coins can sometimes be found in the most unlikely places. Perhaps you have a 1976 dime that's been tucked away in a drawer for years, or a coin you inherited from a relative who was a collector. If that's the case, you could be sitting on a small fortune. So, what makes a 1976 dime worth such staggering amounts? It's a combination of factors: its historical context, its association with the bicentennial celebrations, its potential for minting errors, and the rarity of well-preserved examples. These elements, combined with the ongoing demand for rare coins, have made the 1976 dime one of the most valuable dimes in U.S. history. As we look back at the 1976 dime, we see a small coin that represents so much more. It's a coin that reflects a time of great change and celebration in American history, and it carries within it the legacy of a nation that was looking back on its past while moving forward into the future. For collectors, it's a piece of that history, a tangible connection to the country's bicentennial celebration, and for some, it's a chance to own a coin that's worth more than its weight in silver or gold. And for those lucky enough to find one of the rare, error-prone 1976 dimes, it's a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures come in the smallest of packages. The 1976 dime, an unassuming little coin, has become a symbol of both America's past and its future, and its impressive value of up to $110,000 makes it a true treasure in every sense of the word. The year 1980 marked a pivotal moment in American history. The United States was coming off a decade filled with dramatic political, economic, and social shifts. The 1970s were a time of upheaval, with the Watergate scandal, the Vietnam War's fallout, and an energy crisis. But by 1980, the country was beginning to look ahead, despite continuing challenges like inflation, high unemployment, and the lingering effects of the 1970s recession. It was a time of reinvention, as President Jimmy Carter sought to lead the nation through the post-Vietnam era while facing the global tension of the Cold War. In the midst of these large, sweeping changes, one particular coin would begin to take on a special significance: the 1980 dime. At first glance, it may appear to be just another standard 10-cent piece that passed through everyday transactions. But like many coins, especially those that are closely tied to historical moments, the 1980 dime tells a much deeper story. It's a coin whose journey goes far beyond the mint. It's one that would eventually become part of the world of rare coin collecting and, in some cases, hold a staggering value in the marketplace. To truly understand the importance of the 1980 dime, let's first explore the backdrop of the time. The U.S. economy in the early 1980s was struggling. Inflation had reached record highs, and the country was dealing with what became known as the stagflation period, a time of stagnant growth and high prices. Amidst this, the government was focusing on stabilizing the economy, but the challenges were immense. Meanwhile, on the global stage, the Cold War was still a looming presence, with tensions between the US and the Soviet Union affecting much of the geopolitical landscape. In this atmosphere of uncertainty, the US Mint continued to produce coins, including the dimes that would circulate across the country, helping to keep the nation's economy functioning, albeit in a troubled time. Now, let's focus on the dime itself. By 1980, the design of the dime had remained unchanged for decades. Since 1946, the obverse of the dime had featured a portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who had led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. The design by artist John R. Sinek, the chief engraver at the U.S. Mint, had been in use since Roosevelt's death in 1945, with his likeness commemorating the leadership and resilience he represented. But while the face of Roosevelt remained the same, the country, and the world, were changing rapidly. The reverse of the dime, featuring a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch, symbolized the enduring values of freedom, peace, and strength. This classic design continued through the years, giving the dime a recognizable and lasting identity. But beyond these symbolic elements, the 1980 dime, as with many coins of that era, represents more than just the idealized imagery of the nation. It's a physical link to the everyday life of Americans. In 1980, the United States was still using a coin composition of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, which had been established after the silver coins of the pre-1965 era were replaced. The change to copper-nickel coins had been made in 1965 due to the rising price of silver, and it remained in place throughout the following decades, including the 1980s. By the time the 1980 dime was produced, the mint was focused on minting vast quantities of dimes to support the country's need for small change in the economy. Yet, what may have seemed like an ordinary year for coin production would turn out to be one where rare errors and misprints would begin to surface, leading to an entirely new chapter in the coin's value. Though the 1980 dime is often viewed as part of a mass production of everyday change, it has something that makes it intriguing to collectors: rarity, errors, and the passage of time. Errors like doubling of numbers, missing elements in the design, and off-center strikes can significantly increase the value of a coin. While most dimes produced in 1980 were struck in typical fashion, there were some that ended up with minor defects, and these mistakes would later catch the eye of collectors and enthusiasts. The fact that these coins were produced at a time when the mint was under pressure to meet production quotas and demands from the public only added to the likelihood of errors slipping through the cracks. But let's focus on the coin that would become an anomaly in the world of rare coins, the 1980 dime with significant errors that set it apart from the rest. These dimes, which were struck with slight variations in design or misalignments, became the centerpiece of what would later be known as error coin collecting. It's the rare mistakes, coupled with their association with the 1980s, a time of economic uncertainty and political shifts, that gave these coins their collector appeal. As with all rare coins, the fewer there are, the more valuable they become. The errors found on certain 1980 dimes are what led to their increased value over the years. For example, there were certain dimes that had double die errors, where the design on the coin appeared twice, giving the coin an unusual and noticeable look. This error was the result of a misalignment during the minting process, which resulted in the design being struck onto the coin twice. Coins with this error are extremely rare, and collectors are eager to find them because they are unique pieces in an otherwise standard batch of coins. The rarity of these double die dimes, combined with their historical context, made them highly sought after. Another error that added to the intrigue of the 1980 dime was the off-center strike. These types of errors happen when a coin is not properly aligned with the dies during the minting process. When this happens, the design doesn't appear in the correct position, and the result is a dime with a misaligned design. Off-center dimes are much rarer than those with correct strikes, and they quickly became valuable pieces for collectors who appreciated the uniqueness of the coin. The value of an off-center 1980 dime can range depending on its degree of misalignment and condition, but such coins are often worth several $100s, or even more if they're in exceptional condition. As time went on, these rare 1980 dimes were identified as one of the more sought-after coins from the era, largely due to their scarcity and the appeal of the minting errors. The fact that they were produced during a time of social and economic change, paired with the error-filled coins, led to a growing market for these unique dimes. So, why do collectors and investors care so much about the 1980 dime? For one, it's all about rarity. In the world of coin collecting, it's the scarcity of certain coins that drives up their value. When a coin is struck incorrectly, or if it possesses unique features, it becomes much more desirable. Even though the 1980 dime wasn't part of any limited edition or commemorative set like some other coins, its rare errors have made it one of the more valuable dimes in recent years. The 1980 dime's value can vary depending on its condition and the specific error it contains. In some cases, these rare dimes have sold for as much as $98,000 at auction, an extraordinary amount for a coin that was once used in everyday transactions. The value of a coin like this is determined by factors such as the rarity of the error, the overall condition of the coin, and the demand from collectors. A coin in mint state, with little to no signs of wear or damage, can command a much higher price, while one that has been circulated will be worth less. As we take a closer look at the 1980 dime and its remarkable story, we see that it's more than just a simple 10-cent piece. It's a coin that represents a unique moment in American history, a coin that was minted during a time of change, and one that contains rare errors that make it highly sought after by collectors and investors alike. The tale of the 1980 dime is a reminder of how even the smallest pieces of currency can hold great value over time. Whether it's the impact of a historical era, the quirks of the minting process, or the thrill of discovering a rare find, the 1980 dime has become a cherished coin in the world of numismatics, with some fetching as much as $98,000 at auction. It's a coin that continues to captivate the imaginations of collectors, and for those lucky enough to find one with the right error, it could be worth more than anyone could ever have imagined. As we dive into the rich history of American coinage, there's one year that might seem unremarkable at first glance, but in the world of numismatics, it stands out as a true treasure. This is the story of the 1984 dime, a coin that, while circulating quietly in millions of pockets and cash registers throughout the 1980s, would eventually become a valuable rarity in the collector's world. The 1980s were a time of profound transformation for the United States. The country was emerging from the turbulent 1970s, which had been marked by political unrest, economic challenges, and the effects of the Vietnam War. In 1981, Ronald Reagan took office, ushering in an era of political change, economic policy shifts, and technological advancement. While the country adjusted to these changes, everyday life for the average American involved familiar routines, one of which was the handling of small change, dimes, nickels, and pennies that were part of the daily transactions that kept the economy humming. And amidst this everyday activity, the 1984 dime was minted, yet, at the time, no one could have known that it would eventually fetch a remarkable sum in the world of coin collecting. So, what made the 1984 dime such a standout? Was it the design, the circumstances of its minting, or something far rarer that would make it an object of fascination for collectors? To understand the story of the 1984 dime, we need to start with the coin's design and production. The dime had a long history in the United States by 1984, and its design had been largely unchanged since 1946. At that time, the U.S. Mint unveiled a new design featuring the image of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. Roosevelt, who had led the country through the Great Depression and World War II, was chosen to be honored on the dime in recognition of his leadership during those challenging years. His image, crafted by the Mint's chief engraver John R. Sinek, was dignified and solemn, fitting for a president who had played such a pivotal role in the nation's history. On the reverse side of the coin, Sinek's design featured a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch. These symbols represented the values of liberty, peace, and strength, three ideals that had resonated throughout Roosevelt's presidency. The design was simple, yet powerful, and it became an enduring symbol of American resilience and unity. By 1984, this design had been in circulation for nearly 4 decades, and while there were no major changes to the design during this time, the coin continued to be an essential part of American currency. The 1984 dime was struck using the same metal composition that had been adopted after the 1965 transition away from silver coinage, a copper-nickel blend that made the dime affordable to produce while still maintaining its durability in circulation. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. While most 1984 dimes were produced without issue, the reality of mass coin production meant that occasional errors would slip through the cracks. These errors, often caused by slight misalignments in the die or problems with the minting process, would result in coins that were distinctly different from the rest. In the world of coin collecting, these mistakes, known as minting errors, could turn an ordinary dime into an extraordinary find. The 1984 dime, while initially viewed as just another year in the long-running series, began to garner attention among collectors when certain minting errors became apparent. One of the most significant errors was the off-center strike, where the coin was struck with an imperfect alignment, causing the design to be printed off the edge of the planchet. These off-center dimes were rare, and their unique appearance made them incredibly desirable to collectors, who saw them as valuable specimens in an otherwise mass-produced batch of coins. But the true appeal of the 1984 dime came from its rarity. Coins with minting errors, especially those that were visually striking, could be worth far more than their face value. The off-center dimes, with their misaligned strikes, became coveted pieces, and some of them fetched hundreds of dollars, far more than the 10-cent value stamped on them. The appeal of the 1984 dime wasn't limited to off-center strikes, though. Another error that caught the eye of collectors was the possibility of a double die, a rare phenomenon where the design is struck twice in a slightly offset manner, creating a doubling effect on the coin's lettering or features. These double dies were extremely rare, but when they appeared on the 1984 dime, they caused a stir among numismatists and coin collectors alike. The 1984 double die errors were caused by a misalignment of the die during the striking process, resulting in a coin with 2 overlapping impressions. These coins are highly prized because of their rarity and the distinctive visual effect they create. For a collector, discovering a double die in 1984 dime can be a thrilling experience, as these coins are not only rare but also highly sought after by those looking to complete their collections. So, what makes these 1984 dimes so valuable today? The answer lies in a combination of rarity, historical context, and collector demand. Unlike other years of the dime series, the 1984 dime is associated with a period of significant economic and political change in the United States. The coin was struck during the Reagan administration, at a time when the country was shifting from the economic difficulties of the 1970s to a more optimistic and prosperous future. And while the 1984 dime was just another coin in circulation at the time, its errors have since made it a symbol of the quirks and imperfections that exist even in the most controlled processes, but the true value of the 1984 dime comes from the rarity of its minting errors. As with all rare coins, the fewer there are in existence, the more valuable they become. The off-center strikes and doubled die errors that occurred during the production of the 1984 dime are incredibly scarce, and only a small percentage of the millions of dimes minted that year contain these mistakes. This scarcity, combined with the demand from collectors who are always on the lookout for rare and unique pieces, has led to an increase in the value of the 1984 dime over the years. So, how much is a 1984 dime worth today? While most dimes from this year are still worth only 10 cents, certain specimens, especially those with minting errors, can command a much higher price. In some cases, depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin, a 1984 dime can be worth thousands of dollars. The most valuable examples, those with rare double die errors or significant off-center strikes, can sell for as much as $92,000 at auction. This is a staggering amount for a coin that was originally worth just 10 cents, and it's a testament to the value that rare and unique coins can command in the world of numismatics. The journey of the 1984 dime from an everyday piece of currency to a rare collector's item is a reminder of how even the smallest details in the minting process can create treasures that captivate the imagination of coin enthusiasts. Whether it's a minor error, a misalignment in the die, or a double die that creates a unique visual effect, the 1984 dime has proven to be a coin that tells a story of rarity, history, and value. As we look back on the 1984 dime today, it's clear that this seemingly ordinary coin has a fascinating history and a place in the world of rare coins. Its errors, its design, and the time in which it was minted have all contributed to making it a highly sought-after collector's item. And with values reaching as high as $92,000, the 1984 dime is a perfect example of how a small, seemingly insignificant piece of currency can hold incredible worth, and capture the hearts of collectors for generations to come. The year is 1986, and the United States is entering a period of profound change. The nation is thriving under the leadership of President Ronald Reagan, whose second term in office has brought about economic growth and a sense of optimism after the challenges of the 1970s and early 1980s. But while political and economic events dominate the headlines, something much smaller, but no less significant, is quietly making its way through the hands of millions of Americans: the 1986 dime. At first glance, the 1986 dime might seem just like any other year's version of the coin, nothing extraordinary. After all, the design of the dime had remained largely unchanged for decades. Since 1946, the U.S. Mint had featured Franklin D. Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse of the coin, a tribute to the late president's leadership during the Great Depression and World War II. Roosevelt's image, dignified and solemn, had become an iconic part of American numismatic history. The reverse of the coin, with its symbolic torch, olive branch, and oak branch, had come to represent the ideals of liberty, peace, and strength, but as is often the case in the world of coin collecting, it's not always the obvious or the ordinary that grabs attention. It's the hidden stories, the tiny errors, the quirks of the minting process that turn a run-of-the-mill coin into a prized collector's item. And in the case of the 1986 dime, those hidden stories would unfold over the years, leading the coin to become a sought-after rarity in the numismatic world. The 1986 dime, struck by the U.S. Mint as part of its regular production, was made of the same copper-nickel clad composition that had been in use since the 1960s. Gone were the days of silver dimes, as the U.S. government had removed the precious metal from circulation in 1965 due to rising silver prices. Instead, the dime was now composed of a mixture of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, a composition that made the coin more affordable to produce while still maintaining the durability needed for everyday transactions. At the time, the minting of dimes was a relatively smooth process, with high efficiency and minimal human involvement. The U.S. Mint had streamlined the process of producing billions of coins each year, and the focus was on creating coins that could withstand heavy circulation without losing their integrity. However, despite the technological advancements in coin production, errors still occurred. And while these errors were often seen as mistakes, in the world of numismatics, they are often considered treasures, rarities that can send a coin's value soaring. The 1986 dime, like most coins, was struck with great precision, but a few unique specimens did emerge from the mint that would later capture the attention of collectors. These errors, often small and subtle, would go unnoticed by most people, but to the discerning collector, they were like hidden gems waiting to be discovered. The most common errors that emerged in 1986 dimes were off-center strikes and minor die misalignments. These errors occurred when the coin was not struck perfectly in the center of the planchet, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. While these errors were not particularly rare, they were certainly distinctive, making the affected coins more appealing to collectors looking for something unique. In addition to off-center strikes, another type of error that occurred with the 1986 dime was the double die. This error happens when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned or damaged, causing the design to be struck more than once, creating a doubling effect on certain features of the coin. When this happens, the coin's inscriptions, such as the lettering or numbers, appear doubled, sometimes only slightly, but in some cases, the effect is pronounced and unmistakable. These double dies are highly sought after in the numismatic community, as they are rare and can make an otherwise ordinary coin far more valuable. While many of the 1986 dimes in circulation were free of such errors, a few of these misstruck coins made their way into collectors' hands, setting off a wave of excitement among those in the know. These error coins, though they represented only a tiny fraction of the total number of 1,986 dimes minted, became the focal point of coin collectors' attention. As collectors began to examine these coins more closely, they realized that even the smallest imperfections could result in a coin that was worth far more than its face value. Now, you may be wondering, how could a simple dime, produced by the millions, become worth so much? The answer lies in the rarity and desirability of coins with minting errors. While most 1986 dimes are worth just 10 cents, a coin with a significant error could be worth much more. In fact, certain examples of the 1986 dime, particularly those with off-center strikes or pronounced double die errors, have sold at auction for thousands of dollars. Some of these coins, in excellent condition with particularly striking errors, have been valued at over $83,000. So, what makes these 1986 dimes so valuable in today's market? The key factors that drive the value of a coin are rarity, demand, and condition. In the case of the 1986 dime, the rarity comes from the limited number of coins with minting errors. While millions of dimes were produced that year, only a handful of these coins exhibit the kinds of mistakes that make them appealing to collectors. The demand for these coins comes from the fact that error coins are highly coveted by numismatists, who are always on the lookout for rare and unique pieces to add to their collections. And the condition of the coin plays a significant role in determining its value as well. Coins that are in excellent condition, free from scratches or wear, are more likely to fetch higher prices. The 1986 dime, despite being just one of many coins minted that year, has captured the imagination of collectors because of the stories it tells. It's a coin that was part of everyday life in the 1980s, circulating through cash registers and vending machines, yet its journey through the minting process led to a few rare examples that would ultimately become some of the most valuable coins in the world. And it's this combination of history, rarity, and desirability that has caused the value of the 1986 dime to skyrocket. As we look back at the 1986 dime today, it serves as a reminder of how even the smallest details can make a big difference in the world of coin collecting. What may have once seemed like an ordinary coin from an ordinary year has become a highly prized and valuable rarity, coveted by collectors and numismatists alike. If you happen to stumble upon a 1986 dime with an off-center strike or a double die error in your change, you could be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars, possibly even $83,000, depending on the rarity and condition of the coin. While most dimes from this year are worth just 10 cents, those few that contain minting errors have proven that sometimes, the value of a coin is far more than what's stamped on its face. The 1986 dime is a testament to the fascinating world of coin collecting, where something as simple as a mistake in the minting process can turn an everyday object into a sought-after treasure. For collectors, the thrill of discovering such coins is part of what makes this hobby so captivating. And for the lucky few who happen to find an error coin, the reward can be life-changing. In the end, the story of the 1986 dime is a perfect example of how coins, through their history, design, and sometimes even their mistakes, can become much more than just currency. They can become valuable pieces of history, symbols of rarity and ingenuity, and prized treasures that continue to captivate the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts around the world.